And welcome back to Take Action News with David Shuster. This is executive producer Daniel Marins in the host chair this hour. We're continuing our conversation with Helene Olin, the author of Pound Foolish, Exposing the Dark Side of the Personal Finance Industry. Helene is also a columnist at The Guardian, where she writes a column called Money Blog, and her work has appeared in, continues to appear in Forbes and many other outlets. There's perhaps no more famous personal finance advice giver, columnist, media personality than Suze Orman. She's on Saturday nights on CNBC, the Suze Orman Show, and even in that dark witching hour, she gets higher ratings than much of the daytime programming.
Right. She is immensely popular, especially with women and especially with people who don't know a lot about personal finance, which the more you learn about her makes a ton of sense, because her advice is inconsistent, and she is so conflicted as to be almost hilariously conflicted. We're talking about somebody who has simultaneously lobbied against the indentured servitude that is the student loan industry, and has a deal with for-profit University of Phoenix, which has been cited by Congress and the GAO as one of the biggest offenders in the student loan crisis.
Yeah, it's pretty astonishing. One of the things that I found remarkable was how quickly she changed her tune during the Great Recession. Initially, in the 2000s, she was all about blaming the victim. There were just horrifying scenes of ripping into people who had gone through years of unemployment and health issues and all kinds of other things, very, very publicly, and saying it's all your fault. And then once sort of Occupy Wall Street hit, and there was a sense that the tide was turning on the banks, she was the first person to criticize them publicly, but then kind of cashed in through her approved prepaid debit card, which has some kind of outrageous hidden fees. And so she's really not just inconsistent, but a huckster as well.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, she goes back to the 1990s. And so there was another change that you missed, which is in the 1990s, she was all about your feelings with money. So she would literally say things like, how aged your face is a reflection of your spiritual attitude towards money, which I'm not making that one up, by the way. And so she was really all about what you feel you should do and your thoughts and feelings toward it. And then, of course, the dot-com boom crashes, and you get the second Susie, and that's the one, the hectoring Susie you remember. And then this third one is the one who's attached herself to these various left-wing crusades, and in fact inevitably shows up with a product 6 months later. So, for instance, with Occupy, she then turns around and starts claiming that her approved debit card is going to help fight the battle on poverty, which is just astonishing, actually, when you think about it. And what's even more astonishing is how few people are willing to call her on it, because this has been so obvious for so long. I mean, we're talking about somebody who literally has said, I won't invest in the stock market because I'm afraid of losing my money, but you should invest in the stock market. And then turned around and had a newsletter put together by a small manager in upstate New York that had incredible high-risk options in the retirement portfolios, and turned out to have numerous mistakes in accounting for how the market was actually doing when somebody actually checked.
We're talking with Helene Olin, the author of Pound Foolish, Exposing the Dark Side of the Personal Finance Industry. It is a fascinating book. I encourage you to read it. Helene, I want to bring in David Shuster here, who's the host of the show, obviously, because David is someone who worked in cable news networks for many years and has often commented on the media, appeared on CNN's Reliable Sources to talk about the subject. David, I have to ask you your take on this. Suze Orman, guilty of conflicts of interest. Is this the kind of thing, shouldn't the media be calling her out harder on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think she's guilty of conflicts of interest. Unfortunately, there are a lot of media who have conflicts of interest. So to me, that's not as much of a problem as the fact that it sounds like claim that she's just a huckster and a fraud through and through, and that she simply reinvents herself to somehow try and stay relevant and is hoping that people won't discover what she's really up to.
Right. I mean, I think both are huge problems because I agree with you. There's numerous people on TV who are selling stuff. On the Today Show, both Gene Shatsky and David Bach have various side deals. Pretty much anybody you see on CNBC is trying to sell something, even if they're not, explicitly pitching it, right? You don't come on to represent your company because you think you just want to talk about it, right? But, the fact is all of it comes back to the original point, which is it's putting the onus not on our society, but on us. So we don't need help. We don't need a reform in retirement savings. We don't need a progressive taxation system. We don't need a fiduciary standard in, investing advice. We just need to be better educated consumers and everything is going to be okay.